How do you navigate moving from being a pastor to now being a marketing person, doing photography and videography and building a brand new business? Well, today you're going to actually have a chance to be on the inside of a coaching session that I'm going to be doing with someone that I've worked with before who is growing their business. And you also get a chance to see what they're doing to market and to grow this awesome business. Let's go.
Welcome to the Monetize Your Ministry podcast.
And you get a chance to interact with them. To me, that's full-time ministry.
Did I have to? Because tackle that business is like a seed. It brings in itself and then it opens it up.
I want to provide content and things that are going to help change lives. And I simultaneously want to receive a blessing from that.
Now here's your host, Kymone Hans.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Monetize Your Ministry podcast. I'm super excited that you join us again today. Today's episode is a little bit different, but it's going to be, as all episodes, you're going to get a lot of value out of this episode. Now, before we move on, I need you to do a few things for me. If you have not already subscribed on YouTube, make sure you go to YouTube, type in Monetize Your Ministry podcast, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. We want to make sure that every week when a new episode comes out, you get those new episodes, and then you also do this. You share those new episodes. All right. So for those who may not know, I'm a business coach. I help individuals and organizations to bring their ideas to life. And also I pastored for 15 years. So as a part of my journey, I've also been helping people who have similar journeys to start and grow their businesses. And one of the people that I've helped to work with is our guest today. His name is Daniel Madden. And I want to bring him up now. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. Oh, let me do this. I muted you. Let me do this then. Daniel. Oh, your mic isn't connected. It's telling me your mic is. Here we go. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Daniel, tell us where you are in the world and tell us just anything you want to about yourself.
Yeah. So I am in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I've been here for the past 5 years. I am a basketball player, even though I kind of, I've hung that up. My knees can't hang anymore.
That's funny.
I would say more of a fantasy basketball player.
I didn't know you were a hooper.
I played a little something.
Okay.
I love my family dearly. I've been married for going on 8 years, together with my wife, Aisha, for 10 years, though. We have a 3-year-old, what my wife will call a three-nager, because, man, the attitude is something else. They say 2s is bad. No. 3s is worse. I'm convinced.
Yep, that independence, man, trying to figure out yourself. Yep.
Yeah. So definitely a family man, and as of late, have launched my own business called Optical Opium Productions, a marketing agency that specializes around the content creation piece, so videography and photography. And we'll be talking about that in a second, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be a different kind of podcast because I'm going to be asking you some questions to start, but mostly you'll be given the opportunity to ask questions. So Daniel,
Sure.
We talked about, I gave this a little tease in the beginning, but marketing, you're doing marketing now and content creation, but you've made a career switch. So tell us a little bit about that career switch, what you did before, and maybe even why you made the career switch, because people want to know.
So I started out as a pastor in 2016. Previously, before I started as a pastor, I went to Oakwood University and Andrews to do my Master's of Divinity. And 2016 started wide-eyed, excited to take on the world. Youth and children's pastor, had all the energy in the world. I remember weekends where I would have the youth over. No, I would have a youth group meeting on the Friday night I'd get up that next morning, having prepared a message for the people. I'd have a game night that same Saturday night, and then the next day they'd be over my house hanging.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And it went on like that for a little while, actually, to the point I had realized that I was slowly burning myself out. And that was early on in ministry, because I was doing both youth and children's ministry. So when I wasn't preaching those Saturdays, I was actually in children's church leading out. So
Wow.
there really wasn't any breaks. So I got to a space where I was like, okay, this is a lot. I like children. I just don't want to be a children's pastor.
Yeah.
So I looked to figure out how I can just be a youth pastor, because that's where the passion was. That's where I felt like God was leading, and an opportunity opened up out here in Edmonton, Alberta. Church saw some things I was doing, heard about me, blah, blah, blah. And they said, we'd love for you to interview. Come out here, check us out, see what you think. At that point, it was a match made in heaven. It was really great. I had carte blanche to do anything I desired, and the church actually had the money to put behind the ministries I wanted to do. So that was definitely a dream, and I did quite a bit. But it was probably around year 4, year 5 in ministry, I realized that I didn't want to be a lead pastor, like in no way, shape, or form. And I was like, okay, within the Adventist church in particular, to not be a lead pastor is almost like not taking the promotion. Right. Because youth pastors and associate pastors, unfortunately, even though they are a passage of ministry themselves, but they are seen as stepping stones to lead, to being a lead pastor or a senior pastor, rather than just a calling in and of itself. So once I realized that, I was wondering how I was going to navigate this. But at the same time, I had this feeling that I was being restricted creatively as well, by pastoral ministry. Because unfortunately, the conference that I was previously employed by, they
Right, and
didn't
just for the
allow.
context, of some of our viewers, so the way that the church structure that Daniel was a part of, they function where the church isn't just hiring you, but it's an organization above called
Correct.
the conference. It hires you and assigns you to a different place to pastor. Go ahead.
Correct. So the conference I was a part of, they didn't necessarily like what was called moonlighting or having a side business or anything of that nature. They just wanted ministry to be the focus. And I didn't personally like that. And I didn't necessarily want to move anywhere else either. I do love Edmonton. I do love Alberta. I didn't want to go back to the States in particular. I just wanted to grow where I was. And I kind of had to ask myself a hard question. What do you want out of life, period?
Yeah. Ooh.
And that's when I started to look at some of my predecessors, those who are retiring and different things of that nature, and the life that they had, unfortunately, wasn't the life that I was wanting.
Yeah.
And that definitely was a paradigm shift for me. And I also noticed that pastoral ministry was just affecting my mental health. It was just a lot of putting out of fires. It was a lot of sometimes dealing with people that are passionate about ministry. I'll say it that way. That can come off as problematic at times. And knowing that that was going to be a continual cycle, no matter where it went, no matter what organization, conference, country, it would always be like that. It's not something that I wanted to subject myself to, because it just got to a really bad place where I just did not want to do anything. Very disconnected from my family, different things of that nature. It's only until I made up in my mind that I'm going to transition out that I started to find myself again,
Wow.
because Daniel wasn't a pastor. That wasn't my identity.
Yeah.
Um, I had a lot more going on than just being the person that people put on the pedestal.
Yeah.
And that was a healing journey in itself, when I admitted to myself that pastoral ministry was killing me, was killing my family. And this is not something I want to continue to pursue.
Yeah. Daniel, I want to just first of all just commend you, because and Daniel Madden is our guest today on the podcast, the Monetize Your Ministry podcast. He is the owner and operator of Optical Opium Productions. But Daniel, I want to just commend you on your courage. A lot of people have felt the way you just vocalized and just shared so well, but for whatever reasons, they have stayed. They have allowed maybe fear or what other people would say about them, or maybe just not wanting to be ostracized or whatever, right? Some of, and I'm not putting a knock on anyone, but
Yeah.
I just know this. More people have felt the way you felt than have admitted they felt that way, and that you named it, and you also took action on it, and you stepped out, and you used gifts and abilities that were given to you by God. And I even want to ask you, like, why this area of marketing and content creation, where did that even come from? Because you studied 2 degrees in Bible, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know the Bible.
I was deep in that thing.
Yeah. So why that? And then you could reflect on even what I just said. So
Yeah, for sure. It was interesting. So I'll tell a quick story. My mom just sent a picture of this box that they're bringing up to us from Las Vegas. They just recently moved from Las Vegas to Utah, so they've been packing up a whole bunch of stuff, and then they're going to be seeing us sometime at the end of August. So she packed this box and she took a picture, and in that box was another box that had my first camera in it. It was a Canon PowerShot, and I saw the box and immediately messaged her back and said, "Mom, is that camera inside the box? Please tell me yes." She's like, "It actually is." And I was very excited because they had bought me my first camera at 16 years old. And I wasn't really paying attention to some of these things because I would take pictures everywhere. There's pictures of me and my sister doing the craziest things. And I enjoy capturing those moments. But from that point, 16 till when I was in Oakwood, I didn't really pick up a camera. I had brought the camera with me, but I didn't really use it. But I became interested in photography again when one of my roommates, Michael James, he bought his first DSLR camera. It was a professional camera, and he allowed me to use it. And I remember taking the first few pictures. I was like, "Ooh, this is different." Like it unlocked something inside of me. I was like, I really love that. But it wasn't. Once again, it's not. This wasn't my camera. I would just use it ever so often, and didn't really touch a camera really until I started pastoring in 2016. Yes, I used to take pictures and different things like that with my phone, and I knew that I had a knack for it because sometimes, I would go out just with my phone to take pictures in nature while I was at Andrews. And it was very interesting that I didn't notice some of those things, but it was in 2016 when I was at a church function. It was a silent auction. They had a Canon Rebel T T5i that was on the table, and I went for it, put my name down, and me and one of the elders were going back and forth on this camera, and I finally won it. And from that point on, from 2016, I just honestly, I always took my camera with me. I was always out in nature taking pictures of the most random things, and then it turns into, hey, you're really good at this. Like, could you take pictures of my family? Can you take pictures of me doing this and that? It's like, yeah, sure, blah, blah, blah. And I would do that. But I didn't give it a real go until I got here in Edmonton. I was like, you know what? I really love this. I'm gonna take this seriously as a hobby. And I just started messaging people on Instagram that were aspiring models, different things of that nature. And I was like, hey, I have a camera. You want some stuff for your portfolio? Would you be interested in shooting together? And all of them said yes. It's like, okay, cool. So, and that's how I kind of got started. I've always had this knack for photography. Videography came on a little later because while I loved photography, I would say that videography stole my heart because the storytelling that goes along with videography and filmmaking is like anything else I've ever experienced, and actually what I want to do more than photography now, but I still do both.
Gotcha. That's good, man. It's so interesting. That seed was planted in you all the way back at 16.
I know.
You almost forgot it. It got revived when you were in school, right?
Yeah.
And then just seeing how the thread that God puts, like he just keeps pulling on that thing that he put in you. And then you're getting the affirmation from people as you're doing something. And that's what I always say on this podcast. Pay attention to what people are telling you you're good at.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what people are asking you to do for them. Pay attention to what people are even offering to pay you to do for them. Because that may be the thing that you need to monetize, right? If you're wondering, what do I monetize? Look at what people are giving you the feedback on. And then for you, Daniel, just talking about, as I even hear you talk about videography and storytelling, there is always that development of our gift, even in the service, right? That's why this is called monetize your ministry, not just monetize anything. You in serving, you see what you're good at, right? And I'm sure storytelling was something you were doing. And the work you were doing, and now you're marrying both your loves together, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And that's essentially it. I think that is where the pastoral piece will never leave me, because knowing how to tell a good story or captivate an audience, but do it from behind the camera, I find very exhilarating.
That's so good. That's so good.
It's a different type of process, but it's still very similar, because it's knowing your audience. Like when you're standing up at the pulpit and you're talking to people, it's different when you're a guest speaker versus when you're in your home church, because you know what everybody's going through, right? So you're able to speak to them in a way that you wouldn't be able to speak to a church somewhere else, right? And being able to do this now on a different level, telling stories through video, and knowing the people that tend to consume my content, I create those videos for them, right?
That's good.
So they are my audience. That's my church.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, I want to dig into this. You started it. You've been in business now full time for how long?
7 months now.
Wow. Okay.
8 months.
Man.
8 months. Yeah.
You're a veteran, man.
Yeah.
Man,
right.
Listen, this is the Monetize Your Ministry podcast with Daniel Madden, man. He's gonna tell you. No. You're. I think. Listen, we're always all in the stage of a learner and a doer at the same time. But tell me now, because we're gonna kind of go into the coaching part of it. What's been, or what is your present struggle that you're sort of facing in business 7 months in, full time?
Yeah. 7 months in, I would say the biggest thing that I'm probably struggling with is really honing in. Well, there's two things. It's really honing in on the area that I can be most effective in terms of impact, but also in terms of people investing in the business, so I can take care of my family. Yeah. Right. So I would say that is probably one of the things that that I struggle with. The second thing I would say is recognizing opportunities around my business that can become passive income. So I don't have to work as hard to, don't necessarily have to kill myself in order to make money, right?
Gotcha.
As well. So I think it was those two things that I'm identifying, and I'm trying to work through some things right now. So yeah.
Right. So it's figuring out the area that you need to focus on, that will increase your impact and your income. And also, what are some things that are like connected with what you're already doing,
Adjacent, yeah.
right? That can produce some passive income. Now, those
Yeah,
are two
yeah.
big ones. Those are two big ones. Which one would you say is the most critical, the most
Definitely
one
the
that
first one.
the first one? Okay.
Definitely the first one. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. And you talk about the area of focus. Give me a little bit more specificity on that. Or are you meaning geographical area? Do you mean in terms of what you're able to do? Or like, give me a little bit more on that so I understand what you mean.
Yeah. I would say, so there's many things that I have the ability to do. And I feel that if I chase all of those things, I will eventually, spread myself out too thin.
Okay.
But I'm starting to recognize like some patterns like, okay, well, I'm actually really good at doing, for instance, headshots. They're not the most fun in terms of like, I mean, people come, boom, 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 okay, edit, hand that over to them. But at the same time, while it's not necessarily something like I'm super passionate about or whatnot, I know that's something that's consistent that comes in, and I do like it as well, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out at what point or how do I market myself from the standpoint of, even though I know I can do family photos and single portraits and different things of that nature, should I just talk about the thing that is people ask me to do the most? Am I cutting off other avenues if I don't say that I can do those other things as well? So I would say those are some of the things I'm thinking of. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And it's such a, listen, entrepreneurs 7 months in, 7 years in, 20 years in have the same challenge, and that's niching down, right? Because we want to be general, we want to not turn anyone away, we don't want to miss money, right? It's like
Yeah. You don't want to leave money on the table.
You're right. Like, I don't want to leave money on the table. That's it. That's the term. I don't want to leave money on the table. But I think you're making a very good point. At some point, you're going to have to be targeted, right? The goal is to be targeted and not be afraid of, because I think we think I'm being exclusive. I'm excluding people. No, you're being targeted, and that's a difference. When you're targeted, it allows you to be the best for someone, right? It's not about who I'm not for, but it's who am I the best for. And if and we'll talk about this, but just to give the principle, if you're the best, people don't expect you to be the cheapest. Right? So, like, let's think, right? If we think of chefs, if you think of a chef who is like a world class, the best chef, whatever, right? If you go to his restaurant, people don't expect the food to be cheap. They don't, but they go, this is an experience. There is a barber I follow online. I don't remember his name, but this guy has a lot of followers on Instagram. I've not been to his barbershop, but I know he is not the cheapest barber.
For sure.
But he does a special kind of haircut, right? He does so he's a specialist for this type of haircut. He's not general. Like, he's not just, I just do haircuts. He does this particular type of, for women. So he does women's hair, black women, whatever. And so because he is so specialized and he does this thing, if I want this thing, I can go to someone who's general and I'm one of whatever, that's one of 20 things they do. But if I want this specialty, that's the person. And so so price isn't the only thing that people shop on. They shop on convenience. They shop on quality as well, right? So, like, if I can do it fast, I'll pay more. But also, if you have a special quality to it, I'll pay more. So the reason I brought all that up is at some point you have to niche down. Now,
Right.
some people may niche down too quickly. Like they start off and they only do one thing. And so I
Right.
think it's healthy for you in the beginning, what you were doing, to kind of just put different things. I'm a photographer. I do this. I'm a videographer. And so you get a chance to almost see two things: what your market responds to, and also what resonates with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
before you put it out there, sometimes you don't even know, you know what, I don't like doing this. Right? So now that you've had a chance to put some stuff out there, what are you getting in terms of feedback? And we're talking, it sounds like we're talking mainly in the photography space so far, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
well, that was one of the examples for sure. On the videography side in particular, a lot of things that I've been doing have been centered around people telling their story behind their businesses. It was what I
Okay.
call brand story videos.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the same question, right? When should I tell them that I do other things, or should I kind of just say, hey, this is what I do? But I think you kind of answered my question in a way already, is that because I'm starting as well, um, there is value in it's okay to spread out and figure out what you like and figure
Right.
out what
Right.
people respond to in the market and different things of that nature. So no,
Right.
that does make a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I think is important, Daniel, even as I know for some people they may say, no, go specific right away. And I'm saying, okay, it's okay to allow yourself to see what is what's resonating, what people are responding to, what they're paying for. But I think
Yeah.
it's very important. Like this is key here, to track, to have data, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's one thing to say I feel people buy this. It's another to say in the last 3 months, the last quarter, headshots, I had 40 clients buy headshots. That's the one number, right? I had 80 calls for headshots, so that's another number.
Yeah.
40, but also this is how much I was paid for headshots. So
And this was the question. Yeah. Okay.
right, so you want to know how many people were interested, how many
Yeah.
people bought, how
Yeah.
much money I made, and then lastly, what's the profit I made on that?
Right.
Because
Right.
if I sold, and again, these are just round numbers just for the sake of the illustration. If
Right,
I
right,
sold headshots at $100, $100 a headshot, but it cost me, I had to go get backdrops and rent a spot. And by the end of it, it cost me $90. I only made $10.
Exactly.
And then for you now, let's say nothing's costing you extra in terms of materials, but look at time. So I made $100. It took me 4 hours, right? And count all the hours. Count the hours for doing the thing and then the post editing. Because I know for your work, when you're done, you don't just take out a roll and just hand it to them and say, go over to Walmart. You got this, right?
Yeah. I
So
wish.
I would say make sure you're tracking your numbers. Make sure you're tracking if it's money spent or tracking hours, so that you can almost build a dashboard to say, okay, I'm going to compare headshots to family portraits, and I might have gotten 5 family portraits and made more profit on those than 40 headshots. I'm just making an
Right.
example. But
Yeah,
you said
yeah,
you had a
yeah.
question that went with that.
Yeah. So that now this is something I was talking to somebody else about. So what do you deem more valuable, or maybe this is a both and scenario, but when you're looking at where you're having the most impact, or where it is most lucrative for your business, do you look at the amount, the quantity of work you're getting, for example, headshots, versus the quality of dollars people are investing in a brand story video, while it may not be as frequent as it is the headshots? Because technically, to be very open and honest, I have made more money in videography in a month versus doing headshots for almost 2, maybe 3 months. So what do I deem as the best for my business, or is this kind of like a both and
That's a great question.
scenario?
That's a great question. I think I'm getting it. So, would you say you get more inquiries to do headshots using music?
100%. 100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
but in the same time, you've made more money doing videography in this. You said in
Correct.
this month. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think both numbers are important for this purpose, right? If you were to ask yourself this question, if I were to take the time that I'm spending on headshots and give that to videography, what would happen to my profits? What would happen, you think?
Uh, See, I've thought about this. I would probably be a better technician, a better videographer and filmmaker, if I'm pouring into that side of things. But I don't know if that will convert to more people inquiring for my videography services, because videography tends to be a higher price point, which means the time that somebody inquires of my services to when I close them tends to be a little bit longer, because it's a more
Mm-hmm.
significant investment.
Okay.
So yeah, that I don't know if that answers your question,
It,
but
it does.
that's
It
one
does.
thing. Yeah.
So you give me some of the constraints. So
Mhm.
headshots, I mean, the time, the sale process,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
call, book in the
Yeah.
same week.
Yeah. Sometimes same day. Like literally the last 2 days, I had 3 or 4 people that was like, okay, that's your price. Cool. They paid me within the hour and
Okay.
booked the time. Right. So
Okay.
it tends to be a lot quicker, lower price point, but definitely a faster in terms of people, onboarding people, and even in editing as well. It takes less time too.
Oh, okay. Now,
Yeah.
question: the if you were to compare time spent on both of them,
Mhm.
maybe that's a better gauge. Then I'm spending this amount of time on this. How much dollars am I making per hour on headshots? How
Mhm.
much dollars am I making per hour
That's
on
I like that.
videography? Right? Because
Yeah.
part of that figuring out the dollars per hour in videography is from initial meeting with you, follow up, making the proposal, and of course there are ways we can make some of that go a little bit faster. We can talk about that, how we can shorten
Yeah.
our sales cycle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
by the time I shoot and then I go edit, how much dollars am I making per hour on this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be um, measuring them both equally in
Right.
a way, looking at
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
that versus apples and oranges. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Um Ultimately, to your point, there has to be, we have to kind of, yeah, you bring apples to apples, make it apples to apples. And
Hmm.
money is definitely the thing. You want to make
Hmm.
sure, how profitable is this?
Hmm.
There's that whole 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah, yeah.
80% of our results are produced by 20% of our efforts.
Hmm.
So the goal for you, Daniel, with your business, the long-term goal is that you're going to make more money in
Hmm.
less time. And the only
Hmm.
way we do that is to make sure we know what's making me my money in the most
Hmm.
efficient way. What's
Yeah.
the activity? And so if I'm tracking it, right? We're not telling you pick something right away, but you're tracking everything.
Hmm.
Maybe you do realize, hey, maybe I just need to lean into headshots, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because it's making me the money faster. Even
Hmm.
though I make more on this, but I may spread that out over 3 months, and by the time I bring that down to dollars per hour,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
less.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just figuring out how can I make the most, and then figuring out who are the 20%, what's the 20% that's giving me the 80% of value and 80% of movement in my business.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I actually did like a little worksheet on that just fairly recent, towards the beginning of the year, actually, to figure out like what are some of the avenues that are actually bringing more leads,
Yeah.
different things of that nature and whatnot. And it was very interesting to see some of the things that kind of lined up. Surprisingly, social media has been up there for me.
Good. Good.
It really has been. Yeah.
And that's a good point. Let's talk about leads. How are you getting your leads right now?
Yeah, two ways. Social media is definitely one, but social media can be finicky as well, right? But I'm actually a part of a referral business. I wouldn't say club, but chapter,
Good.
called the Business Networking International.
BNI.
Yeah, BNI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been with it for a little while now, and it's been good. It's been good. It's definitely brought some quality leads, but probably the most important thing that has helped me move the needle is there are people in that that um that chapter um that have been in business longer than I've been alive. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm buying you coffee for sure.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And just kind of learning from people that have been doing business well because they've been doing it successfully for over 30 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is definitely something that has been really good for me, but been getting some really good leads from there as well. Word of mouth is probably the number one thing for sure. Um, yeah, so between word of mouth, the business networking group, and social media, those are a lot of where I've gotten my leads from, and I haven't even turned on the Google ads just yet, which we're
Good.
working on,
Good. Good. Good.
working on soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Daniel, you're doing a good job in terms of you got to build that pipeline, and there's some things that you're doing that I want to just highlight. I think for what you're doing, social media is perfect because you get to show off what you do. Like if I'm a photographer, man, you need to be putting post pictures as many times as possible. If you're a videographer, post videos as many times as possible, because every time you post, I begin to imagine, man, if I worked with this guy, that's how I would look. He can make me have one of them power poses, right? So it's made for you to show off. These are the results you have, and I think that's great. And just keep doing that. I think it's so. I want to talk about BNI, the professional network, but I want to ask you: are you mainly looking to work with, for right now? Let's say we're not niching down, we're not going to nail you down to this. But if you were to say, are you more looking to work with individuals or with organizations, like businesses for their headshots and their videography, or is it more persons, individuals? Who would you say?
Commercial for sure. Yeah.
Okay, commercial.
100% commercial. I do like the commercial space more so than anything else. While I do some personal things and whatnot, and people definitely see that on my Instagram, different things of that nature. Working for nonprofit organizations, working for for-profit organizations, whatever they are, anybody in the commercial space is definitely somebody that I want to work with. In particular, I have noticed a gap in the industry that I'm in particular here in Edmonton, which to me looks like blue water.
Yeah, all right.
Which is trades and construction. There's not many people that are doing things in the videography side of things for trades and construction. And surprisingly, if anybody, doesn't matter where you are, if you search up trades and construction, particularly in North America, they actually have a large following of people that just like to see people's house being redone, that probably are not even in the market to get their place redone or anything of that nature. But the reality is there are a lot of really great trades that are putting out some amazing content. And there are those that may not necessarily be as creative, but they do see the power of social media and video and would like to tap into that, but just don't want to do it themselves. So
That's
there is this space that I've already started to tap into because I've worked with a drywall company so far. And I was like, ooh, I like this. My gear gets dirty, but I like this. So that is definitely a space that I'm trying to break into, but it doesn't matter where you are. trades is incredibly hard to get into because it's like you just got to know somebody that will put you on to somebody. Like they're
Yeah.
just not going to come and find you in
Right. Right.
particular, right? So
Right.
that is
Yeah.
definitely a space that I can see Optical Opium Productions really like launching into a lot more. And yeah, currently onboarding an electrician. So
Good.
we're getting somewhere just very slowly. And
Yeah.
it's only been 7 months. So
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. When first of all, that's excellent in terms of you finding here's an area of a need, and this is all this whole thing about. This business is about finding a need, meeting a need, finding a problem, meeting the
yeah,
providing a solution. And
yeah.
so I want to talk about the fact that you're doing commercial. What's some here's some tips on there for anyone who's thinking about that. The cycle in terms of sometimes the business decision making cycle may take a little bit longer just because there are multiple decision makers and they have processes and systems for how they spend money, right? So let's just understand. If you were selling to just individual, I want a headshot, I want you to video my whatever, it usually takes a little shorter. But because you're working with companies, they take a little bit longer. But you can charge more because they have a budget to pay
Correct.
for that. So just
Correct.
know that. And I want to just tell you that too, Daniel. Like, don't always try to compete on being the lowest priced. We talked
Yeah.
about this earlier. If you're the best,
Yeah.
this is if you become the tradesman,
Yeah.
this is the
Videographer or whatever.
that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
If this,
yeah.
he don't, then they don't expect you to be the cheapest. So
Right.
so understand for organization, you don't have to always say, oh, well, I'm gonna come $500 below the last guy. No, I'm not trying to have that comment. And then third is you want to try to sell not just one thing. You want to almost build a relationship where I'm going to keep selling you something and I'm going to keep selling you something. And that's where maybe some of the other things you do come into place, right? Because
Right.
if I can sell one person something 100 times, that's easier than me like having to find 100 new people. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like for those tradespeople, try to even figure out how you can, and we've talked about this before, build out a package where for the next 6 months, I'm going to be working with you, or over the next year, I'll do something now and I'll come back and I'll do something in a quarter. And we kind of almost work out a contract with them so
Yeah.
that you're knowing that, all right, it took me so long to get you on this first time.
Yeah.
But once I get you on, we're not
Yeah,
just bye
yeah,
and I'm going to
yeah.
spend all this time. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you've done any of that stuff or if that's been through
I-
your thoughts already.
I already took your advice, man. I put together a little package and I got a retainer package for them, and that's the individual that I have them onboarding right now
Good.
is onto the retainer package. And it's interesting. Somebody found out about my retainer package and they're like, "Hey, this doesn't just apply to trades, but this applies to like those senior society home. They want to get on social media and start targeting the 40 to 50-year-olds that have older parents that don't have anything to do at home and they need a videographer." It was like, "We'll pay you what you're paying the tradespeople to come and do video for us." I was like, "Oh, I didn't even see this as an opportunity." And now here goes another space that I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes. I'm gonna say one thing that I thought about, and then I'll give you a chance to ask one last question or something that you put on your mind. I think you're in a good space working with that BNI chapter. I think the principle there is if you can find who are the people that this client that you're going to be working with, they are using for other services in terms of marketing space. Like who are other clients? If now you can ask those clients, hey, I'm working with this person on videography. I know you're working with them on print and banners. How can we collaborate to serve them best? Right? Now you've built someone who is serving your client, and the collaboration of it is going to help you serve them better. But this person is also going to be serving other clients, like the client, because it's one thing for me to recommend you a person, like another business, like to another plumber. But it's one where if I'm already in the market for marketing work and banners, if they're looking for a videographer and you become that trusted person for them, they can then recommend you to others who are looking for that. So I would say, find out now that you're finding some of these clients, who are people who are also serving them in their marketing work, so that that person can recommend you to other similar clients when you build that relationship with them.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, I'm taking notes, man. I'm taking notes.
Yeah. All right, Daniel,
Yeah.
what's your question? Anything else you got before we get off?
Um, well, maybe this is straying away from,
Sure, go ahead.
yeah, from this a little bit, but in the earliness of your business, in helping people understand what their business model is, basically helping them like you've helped me before. How did you manage having a young family and also doing that while also building your business and not burning yourself out?
Yeah.
But yeah, just being almost like, don't mean to sound sacrilegious, but almost like all like, omnipresent. You have to be like everywhere all at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great question, and it's one that I wish I could. That sometimes ask people, what's something you could tell yourself 5 years ago? I think I would tell myself, and I would tell you, to make sure that you do put in there, put in sacred time, that it's like, this is my family time, and like, this is my time for me to do something. This is not even with my family. This is something I'm interested in, because you're one person, and you need things that will refuel you. You need things that will rejuvenate you. So you need to like carve out that time. Will it be hard to say no to another business thing? Yes, but people understand if you say, my schedule will not allow it. You need to be able to say that. I think also, two things. I would say getting help and automating certain things is going to be vitally important. And sometimes we think, okay, getting help means I have to go hire someone full-time and pay them benefits. No, I learned from someone I had on my podcast to use virtual assistants. What are some of the things that you're doing, Daniel, that you could say, you know what, I'm booking people, I'm doing proposals, and these proposals are taking me long. And that's not my sweet spot. And it's not the thing that people are really paying. They're paying me for photography. That's my zone of genius. So how can I get someone, maybe a virtual assistant somewhere around the world? I'm going to tell them what I need, and they do that for me. And I just free up my time, because that's what you got into this for freedom, not to work. So finding ways that you can outsource some stuff, and then finding what can I automate? What are some things and tools that I can use to automate? But it just some of this also takes like, let me write down all the things I'm doing. And then what are the things what is that 20% that's giving me the most value? And then what's the 80% that at some points I'm starting to like pass them off to others, so that I can gain my time back. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. And I know we have a few minutes left. Last question I'll ask is, how often or do you schedule visioning times for your business, and what does that look like?
Good question. So my answer is, I don't do it enough. But I would say for every business person, you need to have a cycle of 90 days. I would say 90. So you want to have something where before the beginning of a year or some period of time, you create some vision. This is what I want to accomplish in the next year. You push it out maybe 3 years, push it out maybe 5 years, because you need some stuff to stretch you. And then every 90 days, I need to be revisiting that vision. Where am I? What are the things I need to do in this quarter to get to what my vision is for that year? And then even what are the things on a weekly basis that I'm putting together? So everything's a building block for the next thing. This week for this month for this quarter. The quarter is really the big thing, where you kind of create what are the main things. And then this quarter is building towards for this year. And this year is building towards the next 3 years, and that's building towards the next 5 years. Great question.
No, appreciate that. I like that. I like that a lot, man. Well, appreciate this, man. This is good.
Yeah, man, I love this. I'm gonna do this again. And if you're watching this and you're interested in a free coaching session similar to what we did with Daniel, this is what you're gonna do. You go over to my Instagram, and actually I'm gonna put my Instagram up. I don't usually do this. I'm going to put my Instagram here. Go to my Instagram and send me a DM. Let me know you're interested, and we'll have a conversation on that. Daniel, I don't want to get off here without letting people get a chance to follow you. On my Instagram, for those who are listening, is at Kymone Hinds, KYMONEHINDS. Tell people how to follow you and support your business online.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at optical.opium. At optical.opium, that's me on Instagram. I can also be found on YouTube. It's just Daniel J. Madden. That's where I share some of my longer form content that sometimes have to do with personal development, but more so mindset around how to navigate this whole creative business space. And that has been fun for sure. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Daniel J. Madden. So
all right,
yeah.
Awesome. Make sure y'all go check him out. I follow you on YouTube, Instagram, and I love the content. And then go to YouTube. Daniel, it's been a pleasure, my friend, being on with you for this conversation. Those of you who are here now, this is your opportunity. You have learned some stuff from Daniel's journey. Maybe you're sitting on something. I just want to encourage you. Take that thing that you're sitting on. Take that knowledge, that expertise, the things you've gained in ministry, and go take your ideas and bring them to life.
Thank you for listening to the Monetize Your Ministry podcast with Kymone Hinds. For more information, visit our website at www.monetizeyourministrypodcast.com. That's www.monetizeyourministrypodcast.com. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please share this episode with someone who needs it. Let's increase our income and impact.